Welcome to Cure Connections. Thank you for joining us. I am Martha Raymond, founder of the Raymond Foundation, executive director of Michael's Mission, and the co-chair of the GI Cancers Alliance. Advocacy plays a critical role in helping patients and caregivers navigate their cancer journey, from education to finding a doctor to raising money to advance research. None of this is possible without help from patients, caregivers, researchers, clinicians, as well as pharmaceutical manufacturers. Today we are fortunate to have with us Tim Wert, who is Vice President of Market Access and Policy for Taiho Oncology, and Heather Ambrose, the Director of Acute Care Field Medical and Patient Advocacy for BTG International. And welcome both Heather and Tim. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and we really appreciate your time. Your partnership with our GI Cancers Alliance is so meaningful to us, and I know with our patient and caregiver community. So again, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
One of the things I'd like to start with this morning is the important role that all of us play in the patient journey. So with industry, advocacy groups, and the patients. So my first question I'm a little curious about is, what would you think maybe patients and caregivers don't know about industry in general? And I guess, Heather, I'll start with you this morning.
Well, I'd probably start off with industry isn't this black hole. We're a group of people who care very passionately about patients, caregivers, and their journey. And our goal is really to help them in their fight, as well as to improve their quality of life. And that all starts with understanding the patient and what they're going through. So for us, really understanding their unmet needs from the very beginning, from when we're designing clinical trials through every aspect of supporting patients with our particular area. But I think the most important part is just the dedication and the passion that everyone is putting into working very hard to make sure that they have the treatments and the services and the support that they need to have a successful journey.
I would agree with Heather. I think that the patient centricity that we have as industry is something that probably doesn't come across as much as it should. We spend a lot of time with patients. Patients are always our North Star in everything that we do. I mean, Heather mentioned the research and the development and trying to kind of bring, products to them to kind of improve their condition. And I think that comes the whole way down through everything else that we attempt to do, from communications to education to trying to help them with their insurance and accessing their medications that way.
And I agree definitely with both of you. We're all in this together, and to help the patient, from the point of diagnosis through survivorship, I think is just critical. So I'm so excited again that you both are here to kind of discuss this and really look at ways that we can further help the patient, throughout their care continuum. So last year, the GI Cancers Alliance, we created a nationwide survey of the unmet needs of GI cancer patients. And it was met with great success, and we learned an awful lot, from that survey that really did go nationwide, coast to coast. So one of the things I'm interested in is, do you feel that there are gaps kind of in that education or supportive service area that all of us working together on services or educational materials that we could better help address? I mean, I know there are wonderful resources out there already, but I do think that, for example, the treatment plan or the survivorship care plan, which helps a patient kind of give them a roadmap, throughout their journey. Are there other things that you think of that we might, work toward?
Definitely. I mean, I think there's always room for improvement when it comes to education. We're always learning from the patients and caregivers themselves as to what they need and where we can, fill those gaps. For me, one area that I see a need for improved education is on side effects and side effect management. I think there's some perception that, cancer treatment is going to be rough, and so people expect to not feel so great during, treatment. And there are a lot of available options to manage their symptoms so that they can have a better quality of life while they're going through cancer treatment. There's no need to suffer, needlessly through treatment. I think it's really important for patients to feel empowered to report their symptoms. and to keep doing so if their symptoms are not improving. If one treatment or therapy to manage those symptoms doesn't work, oftentimes there's another option, and even another option beyond that. And it's not, I've heard patients say, well, I don't want to complain. And it's not complaining, it's just reporting your symptoms so that your care team can help you manage those and to feel better.
As you mentioned, a lot of times patients do suffer kind of in silence because they're afraid, like you said, they don't want to be labeled as a troublemaker, or they don't want to complain, or they might be afraid that their healthcare professional might change their dosage, and they worry that, you know, would then that affect, you know, my outcome. So I do think there's a lot we can do around that area because, as you said, we don't want anyone to suffer needlessly, and there are so many things that can be, you know, can be done proactively.
Absolutely. It's really about good communication between the patient and the caregiver and the care team that's taking care of them, whether it be the physicians or the nurse navigators or the nurses or even sometimes the medical assistants, you know, bringing everyone together, making sure that the patient's getting what they needed. And a lot of times it's the caregiver that will notice that something's not right, that'll raise the alarm and make the phone call for the patient. But it's being, you know, understanding that it is okay. And it's not a bother, it's not a complaint. Everyone here wants to make the patient better and wants them to be comfortable along the way. And they can't do it if they don't know.
Absolutely.
I think that patients, when they are faced with a diagnosis of cancer, really need to have a village, you know, kind of wrapped around them. And I think that we all have a role to play there. You know, one of the things that I think is an observation, at least at these times, is that things are changing so much in terms of the delivery of care in this country right now. And that's taxing our clinicians in terms of the time that they have to spend, you know, communicating, educating, coordinating, you know, around their patients' needs and their experience of what they're going through with their medications. So I think that there are gaps that are out there. I think that there are gaps that have been brought upon just because there are severe limitations in terms of time that can be devoted, you know, to this. And so, you know, we, as Heather mentioned, we spend a lot of time trying to understand the patient journey with our products, the experience, how we can help communicate and educate and what to anticipate, you know, how to be able to kind of work with clinicians and advocacy groups as to how can you best deliver that information so that you can help patients, you know, proactively engage, you know, so they can have the absolute best experience with their treatment possible. And I think that we all need to kind of figure out how we can kind of work together to make that happen. And it's also my sense is that patients, as all of us, I mean, we can never hear things enough. Because I don't know about you, but the older I get, I mean, you know, the less I retain and the quicker I forget. So, you know, so I don't think it's harmful if we help each other, you know,
Absolutely.
in our efforts to help these patients. And
I agree definitely with both of you. And I think one thing too is always to have someone come with the patient to those, you know,
Absolutely.
meetings with the oncologist or healthcare professional to take notes and to be that other set of ears. Because like you said, it's difficult enough in day-to-day life, but then when you're listening to this important scientific and, you know, information, it's very difficult to hear it a lot of times. And that's why I think more work needs to be done for our caregivers, and that's one of the things that, you know, at GI Cancers Alliance we're really going to be focusing on is that understanding and what more we can do to not only support the patient, but our caregivers as well. In addition, both of you mentioned the importance of communication with our healthcare professionals. And there again, I think that's just a matter of giving patients that little bit of information on what they can do to best communicate. And that really is that two-way street. So we look forward to working on those, you know, materials as well.